Well, isn't this a sad title? But alas, one that's true. If you're anywhere online, you've probably heard that Disney's latest animated feature isn't all that great. Opinions I've seen vary from it's mid to it's terrible, and maybe the odd one out to defend it and actually call it a good. And not that there's anything wrong with that. To be honest, I didn't have that many high expectations for Wish. I just remember thinking that I may check it out as a loyal Disney fan, but nothing about the marketing grabbed me. Maybe it had something to do with some of Disney's latest outings, Encanto aside, not being all that great, or the fact marketing for this was abysmal. I'm not kidding, every month I tell someone, alright, Wish, that's coming out. I completely forgot about it, because Disney just didn't advertise this damn movie. Point is, I wasn't all that excited for Wish, but it doesn't mean the movie is dead on arrival. I was also pretty mad about Frozen's marketing, and I'm one of those idiots who still loves the movie, even 10 years later. Judge me, I don't care. What's that? Reviews are bad? Well, that kinda sucks, but I guess I can give it a shot and. Okay, let's not cut around the bush. You know I don't like the movie. I hate the movie. I'm sorry, but this was actually worse than I thought it was going to be. Okay, few ground rules before we continue. 1. If you like the movie, that is completely okay. Go on and enjoy it as much as you want, but just like I can accept that you like it, you can accept that people don't. And if you don't want to hear my take, I am not forcing you to keep watching. 2. Spoilers will be talked about, so if you want to see the movie and don't want anything spoiled, my quick review is that Wish is a boring, self-indulgent, bland-sounding, generic-looking movie which isn't a worthy celebration of the century-old studio. 3. No disrespect for the people behind the movie, as I'm sure they're nice people who did their best. In fact, I heard there were massive layoffs at Disney while Wish was in production, so I'm sure things weren't easy for the staff. But this was released in theaters and you're being charged money to see it, so criticizing it despite everything is still fair game in my book. With all that said, where the hell do I even begin with this one? You know what, let's be as shallow as the movie and talk about how it looks. The animation isn't bad per se, there's nothing horrendous looking by any stretch of the imagination. Characters look and move in a pleasant way, I suppose. There are some nice environments here and there. And that's really all the good I can say about the animation. While the characters look alright, their designs are incredibly basic and generic, environments lack color and look bleak and dull. It's not a terrible looking movie, but it's a bland looking one, and I never had really that much fun looking at it. Nothing really captures the eye, and no sequence in the whole thing contains anything which blew me away and made me go, wow, that's cool. I know not every movie is supposed to do that, but this is a Disney movie. I expect something from the world's greatest animation studio. Granted, maybe the fact movies like Across the Spider-Verse, Mutant Mayhem, and Elemental came out this year. None of them look like the traditional animated movie, and that may harm Wish's generic aesthetic? But you can't tell me Disney busts out a visual explosion of colors with Encanto 2 years ago and are now incapable of delivering something new. Putting a cel-shaded layer on your movie doesn't equal new technology or that people will automatically go gaga for your film, Mr. Mouse. Wish just looks bland and boring and uninspired, and boy, do I wish it was the only problem this movie had. So this is a musical, right? What would you expect the most in a musical? Catchy and bopping songs, right? So what happens if all the songs are forgettable, boring, awfully offbeat, and have lyrics which sound like an AI wrote them? I think you know the answer. I'm not going to pretend that I was humming all the songs from any Disney musical after a first listen, but I at least had one or two which stuck with me. Let It Go, You're Welcome, Waiting on a Miracle, just to name a few. I remember none of the songs in Wish. Except maybe the villain song, but even that it's just the name, and because it was so awful it actually made me laugh. Yes, I'm glad that we have a Disney villain that's just a villain and there's no twists surrounding him again. But could this villain be any more boring? We have a sorcerer who is also a king who can basically make any wish come true. His people are making wishes to him, and every month he decides which wish he's gonna grant. However, he's keeping the ungranted wishes away from the public so that they won't go chasing them on their own, which may threaten his rule. There are so many things wrong with this, but fine, movie got a movie. Yes, I like that he is just a straight out villain. I know he doesn't need to be super deep or complex or all of that shit, but he's acting like a school bully. That's not threatening, that's lame. Anyway, when Asha, the main character, makes a wish at a star and the magic from it spreads around the town, the king feels threatened, leading us to his song. The thanks I get isn't a threatening villain singing about how evil he is or what sick thing he's planning to do next. It's a song about a jealous little kid having a temper tantrum. People question him once, and he's resorting to dark magic because something might replace him. I guess it makes sense for a villain to be an asshole, but I don't feel like he either earns it or that the switch to dark magic has been built up enough. The lyrics don't move the story along in order for this conclusion to make sense. The song is way too upbeat and feels more like a comedic sidekick song rather than an evil king song, especially a song which is supposed to detail you why he's resorting to such terrible means. It just doesn't work. Not to say the songs are a terrible listen, as I've definitely heard worse, but they're forgettable at best and pointless every other time. I am no musician, and even I can tell you that the lyrics are in a constant race to keep up with the melody. It's like the first line tries to be melodic, and then there are tons of words squeezed in order to make it fit somehow. It sounds terrible and leads to an uncatchy score which I don't see competing with any of the other studio's classics. I heard that Disney hired pop songwriters to write the songs for this movie, and if that's the case, transition failed entirely. These songs barely move the plot along, and they are not even catchy as standalone songs, so they failed on both regards. So I mentioned the villain was bland and terrible. How's the protag? Well, she's not terrible, but she is bland, so that's something, right? I'm aware people have been bringing up that they're tired of the adorable Disney protagonist before this movie came out, but what's funny to me is that if I hadn't known that, I would have blamed Wish for making people sick of it because Asha is the most basic and shallow definition of that trend. The adorable character is the type of protagonist which is very kind, wants to do well, some would even say adorable looking, but they're also clumsy, awkward, stuttery, and some would even argue tactless. This has been the case with Disney protags since Tangled, I wanna say. So what makes Asha so lacking compared to the previous ones? Well, let's start with some context. Rapunzel and Anna were both shot out of the world and had no experience talking to others. But whenever push came to shove, they would stand their ground against strangers or family members if need be. Moana is established as a somewhat of an outcast in her village for daring to brave the ocean. But she's also willing to do her best for the people whom she doesn't necessarily vibe with. Mirabel was very much adorable, but that's because she was also the odd one out in her family, and in a way, sees her upbeat approach as a coping mechanism for her problem. Asha has honestly none of those traits, and she's just this type of character because that's who she is. Nothing wrong with that, but I expect the lead character to have a bit more than just lol, clumsy, talking fast, well-meaning teenager. She feels like she was taken out of a high school movie and was plastered in this fairy tale, and it doesn't mesh whatsoever. I suppose she does stand up to the king at the start of the movie, but it's not an action which dictates anything throughout her development in the movie. Actually, she doesn't have any development at all. Asha ends the movie the same way she started it, and it feels like she learned nothing from the entire journey. Is she kinder? More confident? Learned that she was hasty? Realized she shouldn't trust anyone? I'm honestly drawing a blank and I saw this movie like 2 hours ago. So either it's that forgettable or the chick doesn't develop at all throughout the movie. I guess she's getting a magic wand, but she doesn't even manage to walk it, so it means nothing for her character. The side characters feel like they're here to fill a quota, and I'm mentioning them in order to do the same. The king's wife is just there for some reason, she doesn't contribute to his plot or humanize him, and she does nothing in order to defeat him. Asha's friends are basically the dwarfs from Snow White, which I get why in the meta sense, but what does it matter in terms of the story? The only thing I remember about Asha's grandfather is that she calls him Saba, which means grandfather in Hebrew. Has nothing to do with anything, but it grabbed me. The pet goat isn't funny, but I also didn't think he was annoying, and the star is a discount Luma from Super Mario Galaxy. Which is even more ironic since the climax for the movie reminded me of that game's opening. This has nothing to do with anything, but I figured it was funny to share. Actually, speaking of the climax, this is one part of the movie which I actually loved. Not liked, not tolerated, loved. At least on paper. But I actually felt something during the climax. When the king has everyone trapped under his spell and then Asha and all the other people in the kingdom start singing the reprise for this wish, granting the star its power to defeat the king, somehow, all of a sudden, I felt something. I saw the point of the story, the good intention which was buried under this shitty mess. I kind of ignored this point throughout the review, but Wish is supposed to celebrate the 100th year anniversary of Walt Disney Animation, by giving us the origin of the star we all wish upon. While this fact doesn't make Wish a good movie, if anything it makes it more pathetic that this is how we're celebrating 100 years of the most well-known animation studio ever, this climax thrives because of that little fact. It represented the hope which Disney helped inspire in a lot of kids and adults all over the world. How we all have dreams or wishes which we're chasing, or sadly have to put on the back burner for a bit. That same hope that one day things will be okay and these obstacles along the way won't matter anymore. It all came true in this one scene. Everyone coming together to enhance the power of the star is kinda reminiscent of everyone who watched Disney movies growing up and stuck with them throughout the years. Out of nowhere, this one scene got Disney's magic. I was actually enjoying this part of the movie. I was getting chills as a fan of the studio. That was a worthy celebration of Disney. Too bad the movie in general and also the ending after the climax suck real hard. If anything, seeing the potential shine through this climax, catching some of the references to other characters in the Disney canon, realizing the ending shot is supposed to be like the castle in the logo, and witnessing all the characters from the past movies appear in the credits, instead of making me go easy on the movie, they just made me more disappointed with it. This bland and boring mess I'm already starting to forget about is what's supposed to celebrate Disney's long history. Get the fuck out! Actually, if you watched any of my older videos, you know that I absolutely hated Raya and the Last Dragon. It was boring, annoying, poorly represented the culture it tried so hard to celebrate. Check the card on top for more info. But when a friend asked me if Wish is better than Raya, I said I'm not sure which one is worse, but I hate Wish a lot more than Raya. For all of its faults, that movie stands on its own and fails on its own. It just happens to be a flop in a studio's otherwise great lineup. Wish, however, it wants to be connected to the lineup. It sells itself as the origin story for the wishing star every Disney lead wished upon. The one which made Pinocchio a real boy, the one which led Hercules to find the place where he belongs. Why do you think you see those silhouettes of all the Disney characters in the credits? This lame-ass movie wants to be important to all of the Disney movies which came before it. Thus, when it fails Disney in general. And for such a beloved studio, that's pretty shit. I know people would joke that Disney is an evil corporation, and I even joke about it from time to time. But then you get something like Once Upon a Studio, which makes us realize how much Disney has actually created, which was a part of our lives in some way. We all have our favorites, Lion King for life, but they all come together underneath this one legendary studio, even if we don't like every movie they ever made. Disney is so much more than an evil entity. It's something a lot of people feel connected to. It taught us about love and passion and to always follow your dream, even if there are obstacles. There's always this one movie or character which makes you feel safe and like you are seen by someone. Disney magic isn't just something which happens and you can't explain it scientifically in a plot. It's a feeling many kids and adults feel when they experience these timeless characters at their prime, either through a song or conquering evil. Wish doesn't represent any of that, and nor does it represent what started the legacy of the studio. Walt Disney was an ambitious person who fought against all odds to entertain people and ended up creating something we can't imagine our lives without. You guys heard the story about the people who made fun of Disney for putting so much effort into Snow White? People called him a lunatic and a fool for making it. Even his wife told him people won't see it. I don't think I need to tell you the detractors were the ones wrong in this case. And Disney would go on to produce many hits which lasted generations. He did that through unforgettable characters, wonderful songs, timeless stories which stick with us to this day, and a lot of heart. Wish isn't a celebration of Walt Disney's legacy. It's the equivalent of a kid copy and pasting off the internet what the Disney movie is like, while lacking the heart and imagination Walt himself had. If I were to wish for something right now, I'd wish for this movie to disappear from the Disney canon. They had other bad movies, sure, but this one dared to claim it gets Disney. And that's the biggest insult a bad movie could commit.